What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, March 25th, 2024. As always, I'm PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 270. Phil, I know you said you had an opening monologue, so I'm going to duck out, run to the bathroom, and let you take this away.
Wow, I didn't know it was going to be... I thought you were going to go through the normal...
it's all you. Spotlight is all on you.
I was expecting the normal opening, but... All right, so we've seen a lot, and I know PK has directly been upset about this recently. There's been some backlash on the Facebook groups, and not about us specifically or anything, but just the team when they lose. And we've gone through this ourselves where PK has tried to avoid looking at the comments right during a game and then after a game, because especially when you try to, watch a game as a fan, you get very emotionally involved and you see things that aren't really there. And then when we go back through things and we've become more analytical in what we've been able to do and kind of take a step back as being fans a little bit more often. Even when we watch the games live, we're a little bit less judgy as we watch, but even for this game, especially, it took me a little bit of rewatching to really kind of go through and look at what I wanted. And I was kind of just going to say that I hope that our fans, in one respect, I really hope that they are some of the people that are posting passionately and kind of, I'm going to say incorrectly, but then they take the weekend, especially on a Friday game, to calm down and pull themselves back, and they listen to us on Monday, and we're a little bit more analytical, and we also take a step back and really dive into the game and give our true feelings without having too much emotional bias behind it. We try to just see what the Bandits did in black and white, and I hope that our listeners are some of the people that are posting passionately during the game, because I get it. I've been there. Even this season recently, PK and I had an exchange about the refs during one of the games that I was in attendance for, Albany. And after taking a step back and going back and watching the game and pulling my emotions out of it, I was like, all right, the refs really weren't that bad. And I hope our fans do the same thing, where during the game and even right after the game, you're very passionate. I get it. A lot of comments are flying all over the place. We've done it ourselves, and we've taken a step back to not have that emotional reaction right during the game or right after. And I hope that our fans take the weekend to then, kind of digress and listen to us on Monday and try to get a little bit better of true feelings of where we feel the team's at, and just kind of how we felt the game actually went, with less emotion involved and more just true dissecting and breaking down of the games. And at the same time, like we mentioned with some of these fans, not all of them and not all of our listeners by any means, but this team has been ridiculously fortunate to be 12-4 multiple seasons in a row, and
14-4.
Sorry, I was like 12-4. It sounded wrong to my head too, but 14-4, and also going to 3 straight championships of the completed seasons. There was the missed season, the shortened season. Obviously, there are no championships there, but the last 3 championships that have been played, the Bandits have been a part of. They won one of them. Like, you're 7-7. It's not the end of the world. You're not Colorado. You didn't go to a championship back-to-back years and then completely have a tank season. Like, you're fine. Like, they're okay. They're going to be okay. The team is going through some struggles. Sure, 7-7. Is it fun? No, it's not fun to lose 7 games in a year. But, as fans, we haven't had to deal with that for an incredibly long time. And we're pretty spoiled. I mean, if you really think about it, we're very spoiled right now with what they've been able to do. 3 straight championships is incredible. Winning one most recently is incredible. Yes, you can be upset with the 7-7 season. Yes, you can hope for more, expect better from this team. Should they be playing better? Probably a little bit, but we've been very fortunate just in what we've been able to witness these last few years, which has been pretty much no struggling other than the championships where you lost 2 of them. But you just won one. Calm down. They're 7-7. They're still in a good playoff position. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I have 2 points to that. I think the first one you pretty much already talked about. I think a lot of the fan base is a bit spoiled, and I think, and again, it's always the minority that comes across the loudest, and that's the case in normal day life. So I tend to, and I was a victim of it this past weekend where I read the comment section and I realized I probably shouldn't have, but everybody and the most majority that keeps saying is, "Oh, we're fans, we're entitled to our opinion," and that's perfectly fine. You can say whatever opinion you want. It's
That is
everybody
true.
has an opinion. That's it. You're more than welcome to comment whatever you want. I think a lot of it is just what you said. A lot of 14-4 seasons, a lot of championship appearances, championship last year, and they came into the season expecting it to be another joyride right to the finals without much difficulty. And with the back end already being hurt going into the season, and they've just gotten more hurt, and players have been coming back. I think a lot of it is just either a fan base that hasn't been around long enough to remember some of the bad days. The season before you got Josh Byrne, not the best season. They ended up with the first pick and got Josh Byrne
There was a reason
because
for
they were
that.
bad that year. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is just fan bases that have come into the picture and fans that have come into the picture because they want to root for a good team. This is what I've been saying about the Sabres. You're never going to have a younger fan base because you're never any good, and young people don't want to root for bad teams. It's common sense. So I think a lot of it is the younger fan base and people that have come on, which is a great thing during the very good days, but they're not used to seeing a team struggle. So I think that's one of it. Number two, and this can be for everyday life. I used to coach basketball, younger kids, fourth through like eighth grade, all those, because, I played basketball, I used to coach it. I thought it was fun coaching. I used to always say after a game, I never spoke to the team about what I just witnessed until the following practice, because I would always tell them, hey, the first 24 hours, you're going to be talking more emotionally rather than rationally. And that's what I think one of the commenters was like, hey, we're entitled to our opinions. And I went, hey, I didn't say you weren't entitled to your opinions. I'm just saying critical conversations and rational conversations rather than make believe land of saying things that aren't actually there. So I think it's an important lesson. And this is Professor PK putting on his tie here. Take the 24 hours before you hit send to calm yourself down, because I think you and I are both victims of that as well when we've had to record after a Bills loss, where those are difficult times trying to record after just witnessing it. One, you don't have all the numbers to back up your opinions. Two, a lot of it is just emotional talking. So before you hit send, before you say, hey, this is a good comment to send out, hey, before you post this, and which, if you want to just disregard this whatsoever, who am I to tell you how to react to a win or a loss? Whatever. But I have found it best that if you take the 24-hour rule, we'll put that as an institutional rule here. If you take the 24-hour rule and wait to pretty much calm yourself down, and that's what I found, this year, being able to be up in the media box and being more press type, podcast now, is you don't really talk through emotions. You let it digest, you let it calm down, and then you review everything and you find, hey, maybe my opinion has changed because I was more talking emotionally. And then you don't have to go backtrack. There's nothing worse than saying something in emotion and then 24 hours later going, man, I'm an idiot. I shouldn't have said that. So that's my advice, is the 24-hour rule, and then revisit what you were going to say and see if it's the same thing.
Yep, I think it's a good rule, and like you said, we're both victims of the exact same thing. And even me this year, I mean, when I went to that Albany game, it was very heated. In general, I mean, I don't know why the Bandits were so heated. They really do not like Albany for some reason, but I hadn't been to a home game in about a month or two, and so I was very emotional just finally being back as a fan and being able to witness that game. I just really didn't like how the refs performed. I was very emotional about it during the game, then took some time afterwards to digest it all for my article, went back and reviewed every single penalty there was, and they really only had one or two bad ones, and for the most part they were fine. So going back and reviewing, I was like, oh, dang it, they were okay. They were not the reason. I didn't think they were the reason they lost that game by any means, but I thought they performed poorly. And then going back, I was like, all right, I guess they were fine. So same thing. I mean, we're victims of it as well, but just, cooler heads prevail, as they say, throwing out old sayings that PK likes me to throw out.
I will say, if you're coming here to hear me, the one that's typically ranting and raving. I don't think I'm going to do that on the show. I'm pretty contained and I'm pretty calm. And
Oh, this one's fine.
uh,
I didn't
yeah,
have a problem
I
with
didn't
this.
think this was a
Oh,
bad game.
let's get
Honestly,
into
I
it.
thought. Yeah, let's get into it. You could good call, good call. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective. Check out our newest TikTok out there. It's actually getting some feedback because apparently I'm an idiot, but not fully an idiot about toaster strudels. And on X and Blue Sky Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article will be dropping on Tuesday. Mine will be dropping on Thursday. Phil's is about the game that we're about to talk about. Mine is about power rankings for Week 18. 4 more weeks. And then I can calm down with the articles. Look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. There will be 2 here. First one starts now. Buffalo Bandits. We were just briefly talking about it. Let's dive into the actual numbers and the game itself. Buffalo went down to Texas, first time down there in the history of the franchise facing Panther City. They lost 12-11 in overtime. Byrne had 5, Smith had 2, Nanico, Kluch, Bomberry, and Buchanan had 1. I looked at Bomberry and went, wait, we don't have a Bomberry. Yes, we do. He came back. Vince, 36 of 47 saves. Shots were 62-48 in favor of Buffalo. Faceoffs, 17-9 in favor of Buffalo. Shocker. They dominated faceoffs and still lost. Faceoffs, do they matter? Buffalo 0 for 3 in power play. Panther City 1 for 3. Let's give an overview of your thoughts if you haven't already given them in your opening monologue.
Yeah, I thought it was a weird game. It was kind of depressing.
I thought it was a very good lacrosse game.
See, I thought
like if you're taking off your Bandits hat, I thought it was a very good overall Bandits game, and that's 3 straight I think it was that have been really, really solid.
I thought it was a bit boring to me. I think it was boring for the most part for me because it was a close game, and I really thought the Bandits were being the better team for most of the game. So I think to me it wasn't that it was a bad lacrosse game. I'll try to rephrase this. It was boring because I just expected the Bandits to take over and win at some point. Like even when it was close, it was 5-5 at half. I was like, I really wasn't concerned. I wasn't worried. So I feel like I was less intensely invested in this game because the whole time I was just like, the Bandits they looked like the better team. They looked like Panther City was getting some lucky goals from outside. They got a few good looks here and there. But for the most part, I thought the Bandits offense looked better. I thought the Bandits defense looked better. So at least for the first half, and even as the game kept going on, I just was like, all right, at some point, yeah, they're keeping it close and whatever, the Bandits will take off. And then they did exactly what I was expecting them to do. And then it just kind of fell apart toward the end. But overall, like you said, not a bad lacrosse game. I think for the most part, if I had to pick like one word to describe this game, would just be unfortunate. Like I thought the Bandits were the better team. I thought they played the better lacrosse game. I thought the offense had some issues, defense had some issues, but as a complete game, I think this was one of the best performances they've had. I know it doesn't necessarily look like it and they lost, but I honestly thought just as an overall 60-minute game, I thought they played pretty well. I mean, the power play 0 for 3, that came back to bite you, and I think they needed to somehow do better on that. But overall, thought it was a good game and just really unfortunate to come out the loser on this one. I thought they were the better team and thought they deserved to win.
You said your word was unfortunate, right?
Yes.
I think mine will be more of like repeat. And to me, this one felt, and I think I've said it a couple times, this one felt a lot like the Georgia game where you were playing very well on both ends of the field, but you just ran into an ultra hot goaltender. Remember the Georgia game? You and I were both up in the box for that one. Brett Dobson played arguably one of his best games he's ever played in his professional career, and he won a championship with the PLL last year. And if you want to just strictly say at the NLL, I think in his second year, that was his best game he's ever performed. And through now, I think Nick DeMood played probably his best game he's ever played. He was going up against his idol and Matt Vince. He was making unbelievable saves. I think he just ran into a very hot goaltender. I think in general, your back end, we'll go over each individual parts of this game, but I thought the defense played one of their best games that we have seen out of this group. And I think it helped having Bomberry back. I think it helped having the young group get more and more experience. I thought it helped having Paul Dawson back there. Yes, there were blips on the back end where they could have been better in certain situations, but I thought as a whole, this was probably one of the best efforts and performances that we've seen out of the defense in general. And I think the score indicated, but let's go over the offense first, Phil. Good or bad? I don't know which way you want to start. I don't have a ton of bad, but I don't have a ton of good as well. I thought this was just a game like I just referenced that Nick Damu just kind of took it over and performed unbelievably.
Yeah, I guess we'll go with the bad.
Okay.
First, to
Yep.
me, the bad, other than I think they hit a lot of posts. So again, in a game where you lose by one, especially in overtime, any of those posts go in, and you're looking like a much different score. They must have hit 5 or 6 posts. They hit a lot. They hit a lot of posts in this game, and part of that comes from Damoud playing so well that you're starting
100%.
to force shots where you're really trying to pick a corner because he's playing so well. So it makes sense. I'm not saying that was necessarily a bad thing, but there was a play. I think they counted it. And the only reason I remember this one is because it was under Nick Damoud's highlight saves where Byrne had him completely beat and then he just rang it off the pipe in tight. And like a lot of the net was pretty open. So it's one of those things where Damoud was playing well enough to make you kind of overthink your shot. And I think any other time, and this isn't against Byrne, he scored 5 goals. This isn't a shot against him. It's just the team in general, I think, was forcing things a little bit at times because Damoud was having such a good game. But the only other real issue I had with the offense was the secondary scoring to me was non-existent. And not only non-existent, I think Byrne and Smith took way too much upon themselves in this game to take over. I mean, Dane Smith had 17 shots and led the team and ended up with 2 goals. When has he shot 17 times this year? I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but like, what got into him that he needed to shoot 17 times? Like, I don't understand. And he ended up with 5 assists. So it's not that he wasn't passing, but I don't know where that came from. And to have 17 shots and only 2 goals, his goals were great, but that's not good enough. And then Byrne had his typical 15. I mean, even that's a little bit high for him, but the secondary scoring, I mean, your next highest is Kyle Buchanan with 10, and he's, no offense to him, he's not the guy I want out there with 10 extra shots. I know Fraser's missing, but it seemed like they went to the wrong players, or just the game plan seemed a little bit off and they were force feeding things a little bit too much. And I thought Smith to Brandon Robinson, I thought he force fed him way too much. He just kept looking for him. And I know Robinson's really good and tight. He had a pretty good first game back, so it's not really against him. But I thought Smith was looking for him a bit too much inside and kind of forcing those passes. But mainly just the secondary scoring just wasn't there. And Fraser being out, I don't think is enough of an excuse for the whole secondary scoring to dry up the way it did. I mean, Tahoka with 1, I mean, Cloutier with 1, Kyle Buchanan with 1. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough from the secondary scoring, and Byrne clearly led the way. But even again, Smith with 17 shots, that just seems very unlike him. And I was surprised to see him take over that much. And I get, again, Fraser's out, so maybe he just felt like he needed to step into that role a bit more, but it just seemed like the secondary scoring was not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I got 2. I think one of them has been a problem with the offense all year long, and it's the goal droughts that they go through. And, just running through it, they opened the scoring. That was great, but they scored with 8:25 to go in the first quarter. Their next goal didn't come until 10:58 to go in the second quarter. Then they scored with 2:22 to go in the second quarter, but they wouldn't score for almost, what is that, 13 minutes? Over 13 minutes in the third quarter. Then, 4:48, they don't score again until the fourth quarter with 13:39 to go. They score with 9:36 to go. They went on that 4-goal run that they've been known to do in the fourth quarter. They were down 2 going into the fourth quarter. They go on that 4-goal run. They take that 2-goal lead in the fourth, and you're like, okay, this is the Bandits that we've been used to. But then they wouldn't score again until 53 seconds left in the game. So it's those goal droughts. And I think a lot of it in this game has been, or was, due to Nick Damu just playing unbelievably. And I don't think I can give him enough credit. And I think you kind of cursed the Buffalo Bandits in this game where, you were calling Nick Damu to be the goalie of the year this year, and he saved it up until he faced your team. I'm blaming Phil.
He wanted to show off for me. He's like, I got
exactly.
you.
Yeah, he was like, this is what you were expecting. Suck it. But the only other bad one, really, and we've been used to the goal droughts we've seen all through the year. It's just, I think this one you can kind of chalk it up to Damoud's play. I think in prior games you can kind of count it to the offense, and I maybe I'll do it like 35-65. Is the problem with the offense was, 35% was the offense just not chipping in goals. But the second one, in this one, a lot of people were complaining, hey, why did John Tavares pull Matt Vince at the end of the first quarter? Why are you doing this? It happens all across the league. Like, this isn't just a John Tavares type thing. This is a normal thing that they do. They pulled Matt Vince to get the final shot and get another player on the field, so it's 6-on-5. That's normal. The issue is Josh Byrne took the shot way too quickly. I don't know if it's because Dane Smith started the play too early, where he was running up there with I think it was 10 or 11 seconds left, and Josh Byrne shot it with 6 or 7 seconds left. That can't happen. That shot has to be released around 3 to 4 seconds left. He left way too much time, and Damoud just smoked it. It was a great shot by him, but I thought that was one of the biggest issues with the offense. It's not the reason they lost. Don't get me wrong. There was still 45 minutes of play to catch back up, but it was a glaring issue with the foregroup, maybe a lapse in judgment. I think Byrne realized what he did, because as soon as Nick Damoud caught it, Josh Byrne was leaping in the air. But I thought that was one of the glaring issues early in the first half of why they ended up, a small piece of why they ended up losing this game.
See, this is one of the things as I was going over the notes that I thought we differed a little bit on. So to me, watching that play, especially knowing how Tavares has drawn up a lot of the plays recently, I wonder if it wasn't designed for Byrne to do what he did in general, because a lot of times they'll pass a lot more than that. Like, it was Smith to Byrne, Byrne shooting. That is not what they normally do, especially recently. We've seen, 3, 4, 5 passes before they get somebody wide open in front of the net. I wonder if Byrne took it upon himself, saw a lane directly to the net, and was like, oh, this guy's not coming out to challenge me. I've already scored at that point, 3 goals in the first quarter. So he just kind of took it upon himself to take that opportunity. And to me, I don't want to fault him for that. Again, he already had a hat trick. He was on fire. He saw a lane to the net. I think he did go too early. Right. But the thing is, not everything had to go so perfectly for that goalie to score. The goalie has to get it dead on target and in time, which we've seen so rarely throughout lacrosse. Yes, they always pick it up. They always whip it down there, but to get it on target is usually pretty rare. And then to get it on target within the time frame is usually pretty rare. So not only that, the save Damoud had, he had to allow no rebound on Josh Byrne's shot from, right in tight. He had to be able to stop it, scoop it, pick it up, shoot it, have it be accurate, have it be in time. If I'm Byrne, I'm taking that risk. I've already scored a hat trick. I'm on fire. I know I'm one of the best in the league. I know he's not thinking all this when he's doing it, but to me, I would take Byrne doing that again. I understand waiting a little bit longer. I get it. I get the whole aspect of it, but I think just in order for that goalie to goal to really work, it has to be flawless how it works out for that goalie. Again, saving it, having no rebound, having nobody in your face, having a perfect shot, all within this, the time frame. It has to go so perfectly for a goalie goal to be allowed there, that if I'm Byrne, I'm taking that opportunity. If they allow me a free shot to the net, I don't blame him for taking it. Yes, it was a bit early, but if he saw, that free lane and he's already had a hat trick and he's scoring at will, I think he's going to take that 9 times out of 10, even after what happened.
I agree, but you got to bury it if you're divvying, if that was not the play. And we've seen John Tavares have great play designs.
It seems like that wouldn't have been the play. One pass does not seem like something they're calling out.
Right. For all the people that have been saying that this is a boring offense and stuff like that, you clearly haven't been watching the play designs that John Tavares and the coaching staff has drawn up, because those plays are unbelievable. So if he did deviate from the play, and this is one of those times where we can't really say if he did or if he didn't, because we don't know what the play design was. But if he did divvy away from it, that puts more responsibility on Josh Byrne to bury that shot. I am not arguing if he shot it early. If you see a lane and you can cash in and get that perfect opportunity, take it. But you have to bury it, because hey, if I'm taking this with 6 or 7 shots on, if I don't bury it, they have an opportunity to score. So while, yes, that's probably not the play that they drawed up, there was probably 1 or 2 passes that he did not take because he saw that lane. If he's got that ability to do it, but you have to bury it, and he didn't. And that's why it ends up being a bad play for me, because you left way too much time. And yes, everything has to be perfect, but guess what? Everything was perfect, and it ended up going the other way. So you have to plan for the bad stuff there. If he buries it, great play design and great idea to, divvy away from if there was another plan, but he just didn't, and then didn't bury it. But there was a bunch of good stuff that did happen. I thought Byrne with 5 in this one was great. I thought the passing was unbelievable in this one. The power play, yes, went 0 for 3, but Nick Demood was unbelievable on
He
that
really
penalty
was.
kill. Buchanan's dunk goal was on a delayed power play. It was the 4th goal of the
Right.
game. There were second chances. That first goal out of into the second half, or I'm sorry, 4th quarter. That was on their 3rd opportunity. The loose balls that the offense was doing, the pass that Smith had to Nanakoke to take that 11-10 lead. I thought the passing was some of the best we've seen out of this group all year long. And I think that is something that you can carry over for the next 4 games of the regular season. If you get the passing like this, you're not going to run into a hot goaltender every single game you play, knock on wood. But I thought the passing was just pinpoint perfect. They just, again, they ran into a hot goaltender and they hit a bunch of posts because the goaltender was playing as good as you were. I thought you put that perfectly, that a lot of times, hey, you might feel unlucky, or you might be saying, hey, they got to cash those. But a lot of times the goalie is playing so perfectly that you have to pinpoint those spots. And if he's playing that unbelievably, a lot of times those posts are being hit because the goaltender is playing the way he is.
Yeah, in my notes I have looked elite at times, passing was crisp. So yeah, the passing was some of the best I think we've seen in a long time. And I do think, again, I mean, I use the word for the entire game unfortunate. I think that's what it is, because I think you unfortunately ran into a really hot goalie in Demood in this game, and he pretty much almost single-handedly stole this game. I think if he is even a little bit off his game, that offense played well enough to score more goals than Panther City. And again, we can switch over to the defense now. I thought the defense looked good. I mean, this is another situation where, I mean, everyone's yelling at Vince. We'll get to that in a second. But even this one, you allowed 10 goals because one was an empty net. So you allowed 10 goals in regulation. Like, when was the last time the defense even did that? Or Vince even did that? Like, it's been a
That was the
very
number we said also.
right,
Going into
right.
this one, that was the number we said.
Right. And it's been so long. I mean, they've had, what, 8 games where they allowed 13 or more straight. And then you finally got to 12, which was great. And now you got down to 10. And yet everyone's still blaming Vince and the defense for playing bad. Like, no, they just got to 10 goals. It's the best defensive game they've had in a very long time. And yet somehow they are the scapegoat once again. But as far as like what they did well, I thought they did an extremely good job not allowing Panther City inside. I got to scroll. Oh, I scrolled too far. I had 2 inside goals the entire game on Vince, and one of them was that really terrible defensive play, which was on the defense where they could not pick up the rebound for anything. They all just kind of slapped at it, and then eventually the Panther City player picked it up and scooped it right in front of the net and buried it. So that was one of them. So for the most part, on just normal offense versus defense plays, the defense really did not allow Panther City too many shots inside. The problem that they had, which was a problem on most of the outside goals they ended up scoring, was the switching off of players. Panther City did a really good job shooting early when they switched off, and I think that allowed them really free outside uncontested looks at Matt Vince, and some of those were screened by the defense, which I will allow you to go over, but the switching off was just slow. I mean, sometimes the offense did a good job picking the player so he couldn't get his hands out there on the guy shooting on the outside, but sometimes they just switched, like the communication was bad. They switched off just incorrectly. And again, that is something that will come because of so many new players. Dawson's in game number 2, Bomberry's in game number 1. A lot of these players just have not played with each other long enough to have that seamless kind of cohesion within the defense. I mean, you look at Toronto and the way they played against the Bandits. When they switch off, everything looked perfect. Like, they're just switching off with no issues. And I do think the defense eventually kind of figured it out and made it much tougher against Panther City in the second half as far as switching off goes. But you could tell there's just communication issues that are going on because they've not played well enough or long enough together. And I think that's something that will come over time, but sadly they are running out of that for this defensive unit to gel. But I do think overall they played well, but it was just some of those small miscues that led to Panther City goals.
Yeah, before I dive into my good of the defense, let's go over our first sponsor, Phil. I'm giving you a little time to scroll down because I know it's a little bit further down, but Tap That Tap Room. Let's dive into our first sponsor on this episode.
Almost didn't make it in time. Our first ever sponsor is Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first ever women-owned self-pour bar. What that means is you go in there, You pay for your cup, and then you go up to their 30 consistently rotating taps of beer, cider, sour, seltzers, and malt beverages. You go get yourself some. You have as little or as much as of whatever you want. Try a bunch, find one that you love, and stick with it the whole time. But it's a great experience too, especially just try to really test out a lot of different rotating taps and see some new varieties of things that you might not have tried before.
Now, it was still a little bit chillier today, Sunday, when we were recording this, but Brooke and I went to go see an open house. They were serious about putting in an offer, and it felt warmer than it actually was. And that got me in the mood to, when we were in our younger 20s, we had a bar out there that used to have a patio. And I believe Tap Room is probably going to become our bar because they have that large patio. They got board and card games for everyone. You can bring your dogs. I know a lot of our people in our friend group have dogs. I think that's going to be, and as it's getting warmer and warmer, I'm keep itching and itching to get out to that patio because it just looks like a great time. But I'm very excited to go there, sample a bunch of different alcohol and alcoholic beverages, I should say, and just hang out on the patio in the nice warm weather with that cool breeze blowing underneath it.
They also have euchre tournaments every Monday at 6:30. It is a $10 buy-in per person. You get one beer included, and the top 3 teams win a gift card. I have played euchre a random amount of times in my life. I think it's one of those games that I learn how to play it once or twice, and then don't play it for 4 years, and then do the exact same thing over and over and over. And if you ask me how to play euchre right now, I have no idea how to play it.
Yeah, same. I think I've played a handful of times as well. Maybe this is an opportunity to spend $10, go down there, and
go.
maybe we'll luck into a gift card. But they have plenty of events going on. I know they have their first anniversary coming up that we're going to be plugging that one very, very soon, probably on the Friday show. But check out their Facebook page for all their posted events and check them out. Once again, 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York is Tap That Tap Room. Phil, I'll go over my positives for the defense personally, and I've been crediting this guy for all year long. I thought he's played really well, and it's confused me why he's been a healthy scratch too often. Dalton Selver. I thought this was his best game of the year. Maybe it's because he was playing in his home state. He's one of the very few NLL lacrosse players from Texas, but I thought he played unbelievably in this game. I know a few of the goals, it was on his player, and the player that he was covering got out there. I remember, let me see if I can pull the third goal. Solver got picked and just couldn't get around him, and it was Ty Thompson. I'll bring him up in a second, but that's that one. You take credit for Demood's play. I'll take credit for Ty Thompson scoring 2 goals, his first 2 in his all season. I mentioned him when he was the Bandits killer, and sadly, but for the most part, I thought the group played really well. 14 block shots. I thought they did unbelievably well on Caleb Crawford. I mean, he had 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, and 11 shots. And I know the 1 goal is the one that everybody's going to be talking about. But up until that point, for what is it? When was that goal scored here, Phil? They scored it with 20 seconds to go. For 59 minutes and 40 seconds, they kept Callum Crawford off the board. I think that's pretty stinking good defensive play, if you ask me. I mean, it was Caputo stayed off the board. Knox, who I credited playing really, really well on the one side, he was off the board. Really, it was 2 guys that really killed him in Donville and Malcolm. But I thought for the overall, I thought the defense played pretty well. Were there areas where they can get better? Yes. But as a whole, I thought they did a very good job of keeping all the shots to the outside. And I think you summed it up perfectly. And we've been saying it for a few weeks now. This defense just needs games to play together and get collectively better and better. And the communication will come on the back end as long as these guys keep staying healthy. I mean, you added another new piece to the back end in Bombury. Nice addition, but he's another piece that hasn't played all year long with the pieces that have already been back there. He's never played with Wires. He's never played with Belter. He's played a handful of games with Dylan Robinson. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, he's never played with the Paul Dawson. So it's still new pieces back there adding to the equation. And that's another reason why there's lack of communication. And sometimes there are back breakdowns, but I guess, is there anything really bad you saw from the back end?
Other than the switch offs, no. The switch offs were like the amount of times I wrote in my notes on the goal that either they got picked or it was a shot from the outside and the switch off was just not quick enough. Where it was the 5th goal, the 6th goal, the 7th goal where they just scrambled wasn't good. I I don't know. The 8th goal, I had poor communication by the defense. So just the switch offs more than anything. Just seemed like they were too slow. The 12th goal, again, I know that goal. I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about it and then switch over to Vince if you want, unless you have some other
Yeah, that's
bad.
what I was going to
Okay.
transition to as well. Yeah.
So yeah, the 12th goal again, this is the overtime goal. I guess we'll start with the tying goal, which is kind of an issue with the defense and just something that's confusing, I think, from you and I, that
Yep.
they love blocking shots, which is fine. They did it a lot in this game. They did a really good job. This is another thing they did incredible, was getting sticks in the lane. The amount of block shots they had by sticking their stick up and blocking the shot, it was really impressive to see. Like, it was, I mean, even the announcers mentioned, like, there it is again. They blocked a shot again. And the block shots they had were great. But then there's other times where they stick two guys right in front of Vince. Vince can't see anything, and they don't get the block, and then it goes in, and Vince is standing there like, I don't like, even from Vince, like from Vince's standpoint, I wonder what he wants to tell the team. Like, does he like that there's players right in front of him that are trying to block the shots? And oftentimes they do, or sometimes they at least get that block shot. But like in a situation like that, especially with the shot coming from so far outside, it's something that I saw a long time ago. I don't even know what game it was. There was a play where Priolo was in front of Vince and he made some kind of really great play, and there was a shot from the outside, and then he got out of the way. Like, the second the shot was coming, it was from the outside. He got out of the way. Vince could see it cleanly. Vince made an easy save. It was a great play. And in a situation like this, with 2 seconds left on the shot clock, a shot coming from so far out, I almost want the defense to move. I almost want them to just split, get out of the way, let Vince see the shot, and let Vince do what he can do best, which is save the ball. He's an incredible goalie. I think he just needs that opportunity to see the ball. And again, it's something that I'd like to know from his viewpoint, or his stand. Like, what does he think on a goal like that? Does he also want the defense just move out of his way and let him save it? Or does he like the fact that they're there blocking some of the net so he has less to cover in theory? I don't know what he would want. And then the 12th goal, again, McKay, really slow switch off. He went down.
No,
and,
that one wasn't even a switch off.
Well, it
That
should have
one
been.
he
Was
went
the problem.
down
Like,
to
he went
double.
with the wrong person. Like, he should have switched.
No, he pulled off his man to go down and double the guy that was going to the crease, left his guy wide open.
And then
that's what I saw.
It was a great shot. It was a heck.
It was
of
a great shot, but it was a.
Well, I'm saying it wasn't on Vince by any means. Like, that was
correct. Yes.
Perfect. But yeah, McKay very poorly played that, especially with the way. And we'll go back. I'll let you discuss the 11th goal
Yeah,
in a
he
second.
had a bad last 5 minutes of this game.
But even just the way the defense was playing and the way Panther City was getting all of their goals for the most part in this game, like I said, were from the outside. So the thing, if I was McKay, that I would want to cover is that exact play. Like, I don't even care if they try to get to the inside. They haven't done it all game. They're scoring everything from up top, and he allowed a wide open free shot from up top, and he just buried a heck of a shot. But what are your thoughts on the players standing in front of Vince trying to block shots, and then they don't block shots, and then they're in Vince's way?
That has been part of they got 14 block shots in this one, and there's risk and reward with doing this. And 14 times it worked perfectly for them. But the times when you don't get that block, you're gonna screen Matt Vince. And that's part of the issue, is if you're going to play the way you are and not let anybody to the middle, you're gonna have a challenging time playing net where you're trying to see around guys. And I've never officially been called a Matt Vince apologist, and there's been times where I've come on the show and just flat out said, hey, he wasn't good enough in this game. He let in these goals that he needs to make those saves, and he's part of the reason why they lost. I went through every goal again, and I can't find more than one where I need him to come up with that save. I mean, I'll go over this one. The outlet pass that he had to Highfield that leads to the 7th goal, beautiful. And Highfield dumps it back, and Bomberry cashes it in. That's one of the good things that you got about Matt Vince that I don't know if you're going to get it from other goaltenders. But the first one, bouncer from Malcolm. Goalies get beat on bouncers all the time. It's not just a Matt Vince thing. Those type of shots. James Smith had one earlier in the game. The second one, change. And this is one I was asking you about, and then I went to Instagram. It was the first thing that pops up. I don't know what Corey Highfield was doing on this play. They were changing. It was a line change, and it was Donville that came right off of the bench. They pass it right to him, and he just lasers it by. Why is there so much space there? There's been too many times this season where the defense just leaves way too much space. Solver gets picked, can't get around him. Thompson scores his first. Nick DeMood scores the fourth. Not on Mad Vince. Fifth one, Dawson goes to double for whatever reason and leaves Thompson all alone. Another wide open shot. Hutchinson in transition shoots around Solver. Seventh one. Defense literally couldn't pick up the ball.
And
it bounces right to him. Yeah, it bounces right to him, and they score. Donville cuts up the middle. No chance on that one. Malcolm, penalty, shoots right around Highfield and Dawson. 10th one. Crawford, great pass to Malcolm, quick stick on the power play. You can't do anything about that one. 11th one, I will give you all day long and twice on Sunday. Mad Vince has to come up with that save. But the 12th one, McKay, again, goes down in doubles, leaves the guy wide open. There's too many times in this game where the players peel off their guy to go double when they're not a threat. Like, the player was not a threat in either of those situations. They go down and double for no reason, leave somebody wide open where they've been scoring. In this game, the players were just shooting around the defense, and Matt Vince can't physically see it. So I don't know. And I'm not trying to be a Matt Vince apologist, but in this one, I'm just not seeing what everybody else is seeing, where they're blaming Matt Vince for this one, where they're saying he's over the hill, he's not seeing the ball right. Guess what? He's not probably seeing the ball at all because they're shooting around the defense. How many? 2 goals here. Highfield and Dawson, they shot around. Solver and another guy he shoots around. It's impossible to see the ball when you can't even see the player. Like, what is Matt Vince supposed to do? And on top of that, you have to remember, and I said this a few episodes ago, the other team has good players as well. Like, you're still trying to stop good play. Donville's a good player. Malcolm's a good player. Crawford's a good player. They're good shooters. You're not going to be able to contain them all the time. And on top of that, when they're shooting around 2 defenders and Matt Vince has to try to see the ball in a split second to make that save, it's tough to do. So was there a goal that if Matt Vince comes up with, Buffalo probably wins this game? Yeah, it's the 11th goal, Crawford with 2 seconds left on the clock. I think Matt Vince has to have that save. But how many other times in prior years or prior games, and even if you don't want to talk about those ones because you said that's in the past, in this game alone that he made big time saves to keep your team in it or to let you extend that lead, that he made those saves, and you're going to account for one against him that he needs to have back? To me, you lost to a team that had an unbelievable goaltender and a team that used your defensive scheme against you. That's my thought on this game, and that's the reason that you lost, is you lost to a team that used what you were doing excellent against you.
Yeah, the only thing kind of negative against Vince this year that I've seen is kind of what you were saying. Like, there are games where he plays really well. I mean, the Toronto one most recently comes to mind, where not only did he have a good game, but really late in the game, he comes through with some monster saves to allow you to win that game, where Toronto absolutely had plenty of opportunities to come back in that one. And the defense kind of let Vince down a few times, and he came up with huge saves. But I think the big difference this year is he's been a very steady goaltender. He's been a goalie that, to me, hasn't really lost you games, but the big difference between this year and last year, especially last year when the offense was not performing well and the defense was, I don't think we've seen too many performances from him where he's been the DeMood or he's been the Dobson. He has not stolen completely a game for Buffalo. And that's, I think, the big difference that I've seen this year is he's still great. He's still making all the saves he should make. Yes, I'm sure he's letting in 1 or 2 that even he wants back. But for the most part, he's still a very steady goaltender. He's still making big saves. He's still the goalie I want in net. He's just not at the prime of the Dobson game or the DeMood game, where he's absolutely stonewalling a team and he's the reason you're winning. I don't think he's the reason you're losing games, but I don't think he's really had that opportunity to steal one, or just hasn't really stepped up. And a lot of that isn't really on him. Again, a lot of that's on your rotating, revolving door of a defense this year. Like, last year it was the offense that was so injured. This year it's the defense. And like we've talked about plenty of times, and especially with a goalie like Vince, who loves talking to the defense after each play, like, he loves that communication. And when this defense is so just changes every single game and you have a new unit out there, they just cannot find the ability to play off each other really well because they just don't have the experience of playing with one another enough. So I think the defense in front of him is also letting him down. Just not that they played bad in this game for the most part, but like, I just think with the defense not playing quite as well and communicating quite as well, it's making things a lot more difficult on Vince to also steal games. But for the most part, I thought Vince was fine in this one. I know, like you mentioned, without breaking it down, without going back and really looking at each goal, I can see just from the plain eye, he let in a lot of outside goals. I had 5 outside goals against him. So that's a lot. And when you see that from a fan perspective, you're like, "Oh, all the outside shots should be saved," pretty much is how I imagine the average fan thinks, that if it's a shot from really far out, like you mentioned, that 11th one looks really, really bad, really far out, 2 seconds left on the shot clock, you got to save that. And there's plenty of other times where they were shooting from pretty far out where everyone thinks that those should be saved 100%. And the only ones that should be let in are the ones that, they're right in your face, making 16 fakes and then burying it. But when they're shooting around defenders and they just, once again, like you said, have really great shots, like Thompson's shot where Dawson stepped down, like you said, don't know why. Dawson had a good game and a bad game at times. There were times where he was the reason that some goals went in as well, but other times he looked great. But on that play, he stepped down, double teamed, and then Thompson came up with a shot and just rang it off the pipe and in. I mean, it was just a wicked shot, and there's no way Vince has any hope of saving a shot like that. And yes, it was from mid range. It was a little bit outside, but there's no way. Like, it's a 90-mile-an-hour shot off the pipe. Like, there's just absolutely nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, and don't hear what we're not saying. We're not trying to talk up the Buffalo Bandits in this game. We're just telling you that it wasn't as bad as everybody. The world
I
is
thought
not.
They should have won. I honestly,
they should have won. They
were
ran
the
into
better
a
team.
goalie.
They were the better team.
Yeah,
that's why
they were the better team in the
upset.
Georgia game too. The other team has good players as well.
Right.
I'm not trying to downplay it. They're having a rough season. It's not one that they want, sitting at 7-7, but the world is not ending. The sky is not falling. They're still in a position. They're facing 4 more teams under 500 with pretty much nothing to play for. So they still control their destiny, which is where you want to be when the time comes to make playoffs. But miscellaneous, there's not a ton of stuff. I thought the start of the third quarter, when they were on the penalty kill, Farrell killed the whole 30 seconds solo. I mean, he won the faceoffs and goals 8 and 9, and guess what? Led to goals. 2 goals off faceoff wins led to it. The 8th one, yes, there were 3 opportunities where Panther City could have gotten the ball and they didn't, but faceoffs led directly to goals. Nice, good. The bad, Farrell was very bad at the very end of the game. I think he lost 4 of the last 5 draws. When you bring in a player who is a Fogo, you need to win those ones, especially versus Tyler Burton, who is 3rd game back. You need to win those ones, especially when you're dominating all game long. McKay, horrible penalty at the end of the game that leads to Malkin's power play goal. Can't happen. That was a frustration. Just swinging your stick. At first, I saw it and I went, oh, he was just picking up the ball 1 second to go and trying to fire it. Why are they calling that? And then I realized he didn't even have the ball and he just chopped the guy's leg. So that was the one bad penalty I saw. But for the majority of it, I thought Farrell had a very good 3.5 quarters. The end of it is when we say faceoffs matter. He didn't come up clutch. So to me, he's 2 for 3 in the 2 games he's played. 2, great. 1, bad.
Which for us, pretty good. The McKay one, I did go back and watch it again, and there was definitely frustration, but the ball was also right between the player's legs. So I think it was bad. He definitely hit the guy right in the leg, but the ball was also kind of between the player's legs, where I think he was slightly going after the ball or thought maybe he could get away with a kind of violent
Took advantage of the situation.
Right, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, the ball was between the player's legs, so he absolutely could have not just slashed and went to scoop instead, but he went for a 2-handed whack, and I think he was just trying to act like he was going for the ball. Like you said, took advantage. The other bad penalty, not that I really want to get into penalties, but Nick Weiss, his penalty, I think they called it on the stat sheet has it on Priolo. It wasn't. It was on Weiss. This one was really, really bad too. He got lightly shoved from behind when he jumped in the air for a ball. He turned around and just took his stick like a baseball bat and just demolished the guy's leg. Really bad. Just not something that was needed. I mean, I don't think they scored on that one, so whatever, but really nasty looking penalty. And I was like, all right, well, you didn't need to do that, but sure. But for the most part, penalties are fine. Refs are fine. Not going to get into that.
Yeah, so let's go over our second sponsor. I feel I'll buy you a little bit more time to scroll down here. Mr. Sizzles. Mr. Sizzles is our second sponsor. Me and Brooke were out to dinner, and we were looking for food. I think it was Friday night, and we were this close to going to Mr. Sizzles, but it was an extra 5-10 minutes out of the way. I was like, is it worth it? And then it was 9 o'clock at night. We're like, We'll go next weekend.
If it was any other time of the day, probably would have been worth it. 9 o'clock at night.
100%. If it wasn't
you're
9 o'clock at
exhausted.
night, we were going.
That extra 10 minutes when it's 9 p.m., you're like, oh, that's a lot.
Because it's 10 minutes there, then it's 10 minutes further home. And we were debating it back and forth because they're that good.
But our second ever sponsor, like you mentioned, is Mr. Sizzles, currently at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, but they also have 2 more locations opening up soon, hopefully summer, we don't know, but sometime this year in Clarence and in Hamburg. They are open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a brunch menu that we have gone through a few times on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
And here is why we almost went Friday night, because you can get one of, if not the best burger in the entire city of Buffalo. And that's why I'm so happy they're opening 2 more locations, because as we are out and about in the city, we might be closer to one of the newer locations where if it's 9 o'clock, it's only 5 minutes out of the way. And then we're like, yeah, let's go. But they also have a full bar inside. What also is insane is they've only been doing this since 2021. And I myself have been going since 2021. Phil, you've been going since 2024, but I imagine after taking you there for the first time last weekend, I think it was, it's on your must list to go back when you're around there or just hungry.
Yeah, let's say I've missed out on at least 3 years of what could have been better times in my life.
Plenty of time to catch back up.
Exactly. They do use eco-friendly recycled materials for packaging, like their bags, cups, and straws, and their milkshakes, which I had while I was there. I had the St. Patrick's Day milkshake in one of those eco-friendly metal tin cups. It was pretty great. You get to take it home if you want. I thought it was really unique that they aren't using the average paper kind of cup you get for milkshakes. I thought having it in the tin kept it a little colder, kept it a little fresher. It was actually pretty great, and the milkshake was incredible.
And if you have any vegetarians or vegans in your life, they do accommodate you there. You can never taste the difference in those type of foods. And with what they are able to do to the food there, you could do a taste test and nobody would able to tell the difference. But it's absolutely delicious. And I know one food that they can't really turn vegetarian and vegan is the Great Dane sandwich, but I'll let you take that one.
Yep, they partnered with the Great Dane for the Dane Smith Great Dane sandwich, which is fried chicken, hot honey, chipotle sauce, crispy onions, avocado, and pepper jack cheese on a brioche bun. That is what I was able to get while I was there, and it was really, really good. I don't know exactly what I was expecting. I expected it to be good, but it exceeded my expectations by quite a bit. Great Dane, Dane Smith, you made an incredible sandwich with Mr. Sizzles.
So check out their menu on their socials or at mrsizzles.com, like me and Brooke were doing on our way home. And sorry, Mr. Sizzles, but I was a sleepy boy and I wanted to get home. So we'll be there probably next weekend, because I think we're going to be out and about next weekend anyways. And it's holiday weekend and I don't really want to cook before Easter. So we might be partaking in more Mr. Sizzles next weekend. But milestones, fastest milestone minute review here. Like we said, we put these on our X account at Buffalo Sports Co. Lead up to each game, there were quite a few, but only 3 transpired. Dylan Robinson did cross the century mark for his career in loose balls. Josh Byrne has a new career high in points for a single season at 101. And Ian McKay also set a new season career high with loose balls. I think he's up to 129 at this point, but 3 milestones did happen. Stay tuned for more possible milestones on the next episode.
Yeah, and Dane Smith, he obviously there's no milestones for him, but he's a little underpaced, but he kept it close. He's
still close to 100. He's still on pace to beat the record, but he's got to pick it up a bit if he wants the century mark in assists. But
at least 5 was nice. I did go after they lost a little bit. I was like, all right, well, how did Smith do at least an assist? And he did get 5, so it's not bad. So I mean, he needs, like you said, a couple 7 or 8. I mean, the Bandits in general could use just a monster blowout win for their own confidence, but not bad at all.
So let's go over the NLL outlook. There were 7 other games that transpired, and one of them that just wrapped up on Sunday that did not really go in the Buffalo Bandits' favor.
So
Albany versus Calgary on Friday, the late game, if you want to call that one, at 9 o'clock. Calgary won this one in overtime, 10-9. Doesn't really help the Bandits because Calgary is chasing the Buffalo Bandits, but brings Albany back, but Buffalo lost, so whoop-de-doo. Halifax found another way to blow another lead in the fourth quarter. Toronto won this one 9-8 in overtime. Toronto was actually down 7-4 in the third quarter and 8-6 with 1:45 to go. Halifax unbelievably set an illegal pick on a 4-2 rush in overtime, and Schreiber hit Matthews to win it in overtime. Halifax, don't know how you do it week after week. You always blow it in the fourth quarter. Vancouver absolutely eviscerated Philly 21-12. Vancouver couldn't find the goals all year long, and they took it all out on Philly. 9 in the first, 12 in the second, 7-1 early in the second quarter. Just, Philly, good night. Saskatchewan versus New York. Saskatchewan had a doubleheader this weekend. New York takes them out in the first one, 14-11. Saskatchewan did cut it to 1 with 11:40 to go, but New York would score 2 more in the next minute 36 to end it. Flash forward a little bit, Rochester, Colorado. I don't know what happened to Colorado in the second half. We kind of turned it off because I thought Rochester was going to run away with it. Rochester was up 5-3 at halftime. 6 straight. And then 8 of the last 10 goals in the second half, Colorado keeps their slim playoff hopes alive. Late game. Watch this whole one. Great game. San Diego takes it 10-9 in overtime. Vegas led 5-1 after 1. Leclerc from O'Riglieri in overtime to end it. And then the game that just wrapped up, Georgia came all the way back. They had no goals in the whole first half. They scored 9 in the second half to win it 9-7 over the Rush. The Rush lose both games this weekend. Georgia stays above Buffalo, and some good things happen with the Buffalo Bandits. Some bad things happen, and I don't think it went exactly the way they wanted, but at least it benefited them slightly.
Yeah, I really hate these weeks where if they lose, you're like, okay, they lost, but a few things went their way where it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, like, if they would have won, it looks that much better. So
Yep.
it's just a frustrating way to think about it. You're like, all right, everything pretty much went your way, so the loss doesn't hurt as bad. But at the same time, you're like, everything went your way, so the win would have been fantastic. So a little frustrating, but they are still sitting in a playoff spot. Does that move Georgia to 9-7?
It does. They're
Okay.
9-7, and they've got control of the 4th seed right now.
Yeah, so I think that almost kisses that away for Buffalo. It's going to be very difficult to get to. I mean, Georgia could absolutely lose, just one game, and Buffalo could win the last 4, and I think that would take it. But it's the 4 seed is going to be much harder to get to. Obviously, the Bandits right now are focused on just making playoffs, but I do think the ability to get to the 4 seed is still available, but you absolutely have to win out in order to even come near it.
Yeah, I'm at this moment in time, I reserve the right to change my opinion. They are kissing their home playoff game goodbye in the first, because Georgia, they're 9-7. You're sitting at 7-7, so you're at least 2 games behind Georgia, but they also have the edge on tiebreakers. So
you have to win out, and Georgia has to lose 1.
Yeah, Buffalo's sitting in the 7th seed right now. You got Toronto over them. They do have the head-to-head, but you physically can't catch Toronto. Like, it's not going to happen. San Diego sitting 11-4. You can catch them, but guess what? 11-4, you got to win out. Albany, 10-5, so you're 3 games back of them. One more win by Albany, and you can't catch them because they have the edge tiebreaker. Georgia, one more win, you can't catch them. Halifax sitting at 8-7. You could have been ahead of them right now. It's sitting at 8-6, but you lost this one. Panther City 7-7, but they have the edge. New York sitting right behind you, 7-8, so you got a game in hand over them, but they had the edge. Rochester 6-7, right behind you, have the edge over there. But then your opponents, you still got Calgary sitting at 6-8. You got Philly sitting at 5-8. You got Colorado one more time sitting at 5-9, and then Vegas is 4-10. You have the ability to still run the table, finish the season 11-7, and see where you're at when all the cards fall.
Yep.
But that will end this segment, and we shut down the NLL for at least this episode. Let's go over the Buffalo Sabres if we have to. Got 11 games left. 11 games left. Oilers Thursday. 8-3. And this game was actually closer than the score indicates. Peterka had 2, Olofsson had 1, UPL 31 of 39 saves. Yeah, they left him in, and this is the reason why. Shots were 39-29 in favor of the Oilers. Phil, they held a 2-0 lead, and it was tied 3-3 after 2. So, yeah, they gave up 5 goals in the third period and 3 goals in the final 4:42. Absolutely pathetic. See you in the summer.
Yeah, it was close. It was exciting, kind of.
For 40 minutes.
And then it was really, really bad. And the way the Oilers scored their last 5, especially like you mentioned there, the 3 goals in the final 42 just to absolutely annihilate the Sabres. And you could tell they completely gave up. But even just the two before that were just elite goals where the Sabres just did not look very good. It was close, like you mentioned, for a little while, and then it just all fell apart. And I mean, to lose 8-3, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but UPL just looked so incredibly defeated in his face, and they kept showing his face up close pretty much every single time the Oilers scored. They would kind of zoom in and just he would just pretty much be staring blankly off into the world like what happened? Why am I not getting any support? Where is my team? And I don't blame him. He played a really, really good season, and this is one of the first blips we've really seen on his radar in a really long time, and it really was not on him. And I think he's just, I don't know, it seemed like he was just frustrated and looking for team support that was not there at all.
Yeah. They're facing Calgary Sunday night. They haven't even faced off yet. It's 8:15 on Saturday night. They have a 9:00 game. Then they get Ottawa, New Jersey, Toronto, Washington, and Philly. All teams ahead of you except for Ottawa, all at home. And then they finish 4 of the last 5 on the road. They're done. They're done. Just looking at the standings here. Washington and Tampa Bay are in the 2 wildcard spots. We won't even talk about Tampa Bay because they're 12 points ahead. Capitals, 8 points ahead. They got a game in hand. You got Detroit, who's right outside of it. The same amount of games played, but they're 7 points ahead. You got Islanders with a game in hand. They're 4 points ahead. You got New Jersey 1 point ahead, but the same amount of games played. They're done. It's over. Season's done. They're not making a spectacular run. They had their opportunities versus Detroit, versus Vancouver, versus Oilers. If they would have won some more games earlier in the season, this season's over. Another 13 straight seasons without a playoff appearance. And that's all I'm going to add to the Buffalo Sabres because they don't deserve any more attention brought to them from me.
Agreed.
So, Phil, with that, we're right around the hour mark. Is there anything else you would like to add to this episode before we shut it down until Friday, where we preview Buffalo v. Philadelphia at a 1:00 Saturday game?
Yeah, that is wild and weird.
Can't wait, though.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's almost like football, but on a Saturday, college football. There you go. Yeah, just kind of the Bandits need to forget this game. It was honestly, they played a good game. They just ran into a hot goalie. So leave it in the dust, win the next 4, make playoffs, make some noise. It's okay. They're still okay. And if they lose this next one, then we'll talk about some stuff. But for now, they played a good game. They lost against a really good goalie. They're all right.
7th seed, 4 games left, all 4 teams under 500. You control your own destiny to make playoffs. So that's pretty much all you can ask for with the type of season that you're having right now is, 4 weeks left, 4 games left, 4 opponents left. You still control if you make playoffs or not yourself. So I think that's really much all you can ask for at this point in the season. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Sorry if you're Buffalo Sabres fans. This is what you're going to get, the content that you're going to get for the rest of the season unless something spectacular happens. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this show and this podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Remember, Phil's article is dropping tomorrow on Tuesday, going over this game, Panther City versus Buffalo. And then my power rankings for week 18 will be dropping on Thursday. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.